At the final stretch of college, it's just amazing to see all you guys here, it really is. But I'd like to start off by letting you guys be aware of something here. There's actually only 29 days left of the ISU semester. Yeah. Now I hear from word going around that Wesley only has like 2 weeks, so something like that. So either way, whether you're a Wesleyan, Heartland, or ISU, whether you're a freshman just finishing your first year, or you're a senior about to finish like I am, college is almost here. The semester is almost over. But I think it's fitting, looking back as our time almost ends, that we look back on how college began. So instead of just looking at right now, go back in time with me to the day you know that you first started your college journey. You know, maybe it was that first day you stepped out onto the quad and, you know, you saw all the people around you and you started getting used to the feel of things and you realized that things were really not more than 10 minutes of a walk away, or maybe you stepped into that first gen ed lecture with that crazy professor or that cute guy or girl that you noticed right away. We all have those kind of stories, trust me, we do. You know, or maybe you walked into your residence hall room for the first time and you realized, oh man, these rooms are not that big after all. And then you met your fun, exciting roommate, and you know, whether or not you guys got along for the rest of the year, that's your story, I'm not really sure. But let me ask you this, how did you feel in that day? That very first moment where you knew college was beginning, what were you thinking in that brief moment of your life story? You know, were you excited? Were you scared about it? Were you nervous? Think about it for a minute. I'm sure all of us can still remember how exactly we felt with those butterflies in our stomach the day we began. Go back to that for a moment. I know for myself, I remember exactly what it was like when I first started. I moved into Manchester in the fall of 2010 in August, and I remember my parents and my sister were with me, and they were helping me unpack, and I'm sitting there in my room watching them unpack my stuff for me, and my sister's making my bed sheets for me, and I'm standing there thinking, oh crap, now I gotta start doing this myself. But as silly as it is, sooner or later, in a few minutes, we were downstairs and we were saying our heartfelt goodbyes. You know, it was time for them to leave, and then soon they were off on a 3-hour car drive in mostly silence. And they're actually over here sitting with us right now. Mom, Dad, and Grandma's walking away. I'm sure if you really ask them, they can tell you exactly how they really felt that day. I'm not really sure, but that's for them to tell you. She says that, and that's why she's here. So, but in that moment, as I saw them drive off, something really hit me at the moment. I realized, oh man, Nick, this is your time to shine. This is college. This is where your real life begins. If you can relate to that feeling at all, if that's the kind of thoughts that you were having when you first started, then you probably, like I did, felt invigorated with a new sense of power. Because you realized something. You realized that you, not anyone else, not your parents, not your friends, but you now got to call the shots. You had the playbook, and for the next few years, you got to decide how to live the rest of your life. That's kind of a scary thought though, isn't it? I mean, we've all been there, but that was a pretty scary moment to have that much power fall into your lap like that. I bet my money though, that within a few weeks you didn't feel so strong anymore. That suddenly, as college started to unfold, you didn't feel ready at all for what was right around the corner. And pretty soon, before you know it, all the tests, all the papers, all the social drama, and all the stuff going on with the relationships you want and don't want, and roommate tension, and all this stuff just suddenly happens. And it's as if the voice of Bane is just whispering in your ear right behind you. Do you feel in charge? Oh, you said this is your time to shine now, huh? This gives you power over me? It's a silly thought, it's a silly imagery for that, but in reality, we all had some sort of thing breathing down our neck within a few weeks of the semester, didn't we? We all had something that was lurking that we knew was going to be a threat, and it was going to try to destroy us. And the reality of it is when we all started college, we have to admit that we were really not that strong to begin with. In fact, we were powerless and very unprepared for what lies ahead. But what if I told you there was an ultimate source of power waiting for you in college before you even got here, and that source of power was actually love? I'm not talking about the kind of love that your boyfriend or your girlfriend might say you share with each other. I'm not talking about the kind of love that the Beatles sing about. I'm going way beyond those things, all right? What if I told you that there existed a love so powerful that it could reshape your entire college experience, and even beyond that, your whole life. Here's a picture, if you want to open up your Bibles to Ephesians 10, or not Ephesians 10, Ephesians 3, my bad. In Ephesians 3, here's a picture of what I believe college can look like, even based on my own experience of going through it all. In chapter 3, verses 14 through 21, some of you might recognize this as the passage that Charlie started us off with at the beginning of the year, the time that Campus Church was born. And so I think it's fitting as we look back on our college experiences, it's also fitting that we look back on how this all began here in this room. And so, here it is. Somehow I'm in Galatians instead. Here we go. Here's Paul's words. For this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. And here's the hashtag that you guys see a lot around Campus Church. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more, abundantly more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Now as I look at this passage, I look up at all of you lovely people in this room and I get very antsy and excited. Because I know, like Paul did when he was speaking to the people of Ephesus in this letter, that there was only one source of ultimate power that could fulfill them and sustain them and fill them with life. And that source was the love of God. And I believe that that same power source exists for us in college, and here's how. First, there's a love that can give us strength in college through power. In other words, instead of being a victim of college, you become victorious while you're in college. Let me ask each of you this. Have you ever met someone who seemed so busy and caught up in their schedules that they were always stressed? You know, they were always on the go, they were always looking to do the next thing, or they might have always been checking their phones. They were trying to get involved in every single thing on campus. You know, always trying to meet up with people and go from one thing to the next. And, you know, even though they're trying to make good use of their time, you could tell that they really feel overwhelmed and powerless deep down. You could just see it in their stress that comes out. We see students like this all around campus, don't we? Doesn't matter where we're at in college, it's just the norm. It's what we're used to, and sadly, it's what we expect. And if we don't see this enough in our peers, we see it in ourselves. We have to admit it, it happens in us. We may talk the talk as students, but we walk around acting like we're really defeated. You can see it on the look of your peers' faces. Because on our own, we're victims. Automatically, when we begin college, we're drained, we're tired, we're weak. And we can't deny it because at some point, all of us feel it. And maybe we even see students being victimized outside of schedules or busy work. You know, maybe we even get a glimpse of the broken world that we actually live in. Because we see people, young adults around us day by day that are without hope. We see people that are bitter. We see people that are depressed, without something to hang on to. And we even see people that are literally dying. Yes, even suicides have happened on these campuses. Yes, even recently we've lost loved ones to incidents that involve drunk driving from someone else that it wasn't their fault. I know you guys have heard of Michael Collins. Please keep praying for their family, please. But let me ask you this. In the midst of this heartache and this pain, are any of you sick of this yet? Are you sick of all the brokenness that you see around you? Are you sick of living in a broken, dying world? Have we had enough of this yet? Because we see it so much on campus. But what if you and I as students allowed this one idea, just one belief, to seep into our brains and into our hearts that we were loved by God no matter what? You know, what if we realized that no matter what we did or didn't do, no matter what we could or could not accomplish or put on our resume or put on our job applications, that by the end of the day we'd know that God, the one who made us, the one who orchestrates life itself, the one whom every family on earth and in heaven derives its name, still loves us. Wouldn't that alone change everything? Shouldn't it? You see, once we begin to grasp this idea that there is a God, first of all, and that second of all, he loves us, the challenges we face and the problems that we deal with don't seem so big anymore. And that little Bane voice that all of us might experience in our own way slowly begins to shut up and get out of the way. You start to think, oh, I've got this huge exam coming up. I'm not ready. I haven't studied enough. But you know what? God is bigger. Or maybe, oh, I've got such a busy week coming up. I've got so much to do in my schedule. Or I'm so frustrated with my roommate or with these other people. That's me, by the way. I get more frustrated with people than I allow any of you to see. But still, by the end of the day, you know what? God still loves me. Isn't that true? When you put these giants of college next to a big, ginormous God, they're really tiny and pathetic. They're really so small that they're penetrable. They are destructible. And even a group of people who can go around doing acts of kindness with the hashtag #MCStrong for Michael Collins and find healing and restoration in a broken world after losing a loved one, because God still loves them at the core, that's powerful right there. That really speaks power. Now, I'm not saying in the midst of all these broken things that happen, I'm not saying that everything in college is bad. I do believe good things still happen out of college. I mean, I've been a preview guide for all good sake, and I wouldn't be if I didn't believe that good things happen in college and that life really happened in college more than anywhere else that I've seen. But we need to be asking ourselves, are we being trumped by the brokenness of our college campuses, the things that whisper in our ear and tell us we're not good enough and try to threaten us, the things that seek to bring us down day by day? Or are we letting God trump the brokenness of our college world? Which is it? And you yourself, do you consider yourself a victim? Or do you hold tightly to the victory that God promises for you just because he loves you? There's something really cool in that. And if every student knew that they were loved by God, the God who made them, where their name came from him, man, I'd be taking students around a completely different campus when it comes to preview time in the summer. Things would be so much different. The looks on their faces, the attitude that they have, the aura that they have when they walk around. I believe that if every student believed in this love, by the end of the day, they'd have no reason whatsoever to feel defeated ever again for the rest of their lives. No matter how big this next test is, no matter how much tension's going on in their social world, it would trump all of it. We'd instead be seeing people who are thriving, who are lively, who have reason to celebrate because they know how loved they are. Don't you want that for your own campus? Don't you want that for your own life? Next thing is, as I look at this prayer in Ephesians 3, Paul talks about being rooted and established in love. But we need to make something clear here, and that's where this love comes from. This power source that Paul speaks of, that I'm sharing with you now, it comes from God, not from people. We have to keep that in mind. It's a love that's God-made, not man-made. In other words, it's God love, full love, not half man-made love. And I'm here to warn you that many of us in this room have been fooled while we've been in college because these two loves are very different when you look at them in the core. And I want to ask you this, which love have you built your life around? Which one are you rooted and established in right now? You see, man-made love, this half-love, it's vulnerable. It's inviting to attack. That sense of defeat that we talked about earlier that you see most students carrying every day of their lives on campus. Yeah, there's the typical weekend college hype that everyone seems to want when they come here. The drinking, the parties, the social life, the boyfriend or girlfriend that they want to have before they graduate. All of this stuff, this need for attention even too. All of this stuff, at some point we've wanted it in college. And you know why? Because we want to feel loved. We want to feel secure. But if we really look down at the core of it, we feel so unsecure and we don't feel safe if we don't have these things. Let me tell you though, this whole college hype that I'm referring to, it may just be one of the biggest lies that you've ever been sold. One of the biggest and one of the smartest that has gotten you and teased you and tricked you. Because while you're here to figure out who you're supposed to be, that's what college is for, isn't it? and what's going to fill you and give you purpose, the world around you in your college journey is trying to sell you something that will eventually let you down. Have you believed this lie before? Have you given into it? Have you ever told yourself that this was enough? Have you ever given into this half man-made love? Because it does not and cannot save you. I repeat, it cannot sustain you while you're in college. But God's love can. His love is unshakable. It's unstoppable. It's indestructible. Hard as a rock. And instead of building your life around quicksand, this half-love, you can build your life on a rock that hell itself cannot prevail against. A love that is also viral. It has to spread. This love, this God love, is so amazing that it doesn't just make you feel good or give you hype. It permeates itself into every single part of your life, every relationship, every thought you have, everything in your life is affected because of this viral, amazing love of God. Let me give you some real clear examples of this. First of all, Cody Shields. He's in this room. You'll see him later on. But just from receiving one simple invitation through a card and coming to Campus Church last fall, his life changed. In his senior year of college, not his freshman year, not anything later, but his senior year, at the very last stretch of the race, he received Christ. And by the way, it's really cool, his mother got baptized with him as well last fall, about the middle of the semester. And out of that, his sister, Carly Shields, she saw something that happened in him. And she knew that it was real. It was something powerful. And so she took a leap of faith, came to Campus Church, and then in January, she received that same love for herself and got baptized. How cool is that? That's incredible. And by the way, they both went to New York City this year for a mission trip. And they had such strong hearts of faith, and they allowed God to move. It spread once again. Josh Spear. If you don't know him in this room, you're going to get to know him at some point. You better like it. Because he's an amazing guy. But I have to tell you, when I first met him, it was one of the most awkward lunch conversations I've ever had at Waterston. But I knew right then in that moment that something was going to happen and something was going to spread. Sooner or later, I saw Josh come to the retreat for the ministry at that time. And he brought his friends from the residence hall with him. And soon after, his friends from his floor were starting to come to Campus Church. Carly and Katie and their floor mates. And then sooner or later, they started getting involved in Campus Church. And before you know it, Josh himself and some of his friends are leading small groups. Josh has now gotten guys together to live in the Campus Church house next year, and he's going to shape what the nature of that house looks like. He's an intern right now. And all of these things are not just to say how awesome Josh is, because he is, and he's one of my closest friends, and it's been an honor to see how much God has worked through him. But it's just a brief picture to show you how much God wants to work, and that he can work through anything, and automatically his love is supposed to spread through many avenues. Even in my own life, cool story to share with you guys, deals with my family. My sister Rachel Nalley, she's here on that side of the room. One of her last preferred choices actually to come to college was ISU. And of course in the same time, my grandmother who's here and my aunt were praying constantly, more than I ever have in my life, that she would come to ISU because they knew that God was there, because they saw what happened to me. So they wanted that for her. And before you know it, she comes to ISU. And almost exactly a year ago, I got to see her get baptized. I heard Rachel from her own mouth say that she was tired of feeling defeated, from being fed the lies of what she needed to identify herself with, and she wanted to come from death to step into the light of God and embrace it for the rest of her life. That was so cool. And I know there's many other stories in this room, and I want to ask you, do you think that the love of God has not made its way into your life right now in this room? Please, if you're second guessing that, look around you. Just for a few seconds, look around you, and you'll see the power of God in this room. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I know how to love. I'm a good person. You know, I do good things. I love people. But I'm here to tell you that God's love is limitless. Ours is just limited. We can only do so much, right? We don't like to tell ourselves that. I mean, trust me, I'm an advocate for this. I want to be loved by everybody, and I want to love everybody. My closest friends know how big of a struggle this is for me, this desire for attention, but it's true. Excuse me. But again, ours is limited, and let me ask you this. Can anyone in this room love someone perfectly? Can anyone, without the help of God, say that they love someone unconditionally for the rest of their life without any second guess, without any hesitation? If that's you, you should come on up here and I am going to invite you to preach. Because you should be preaching to your friends right now, not me. If this is you, then you should probably come up here, take the mic away from me, and I'll shut up and sit down and just listen for the rest of the time. But I think all of us here in this room, we realize that we're human. We're limited. We didn't create the universe. We cannot orchestrate life and hold everything together because we're not God. We're just not God. We're human. But guess what? God can do those things. It's in his nature. He's limitless in love, and he's limitless in power. It's just who he is, guys. That's God. So right now, at this point in your college journey, which one do you stand on? Which love are you being rooted in? Are you chasing after half love or God love? Finally, I know that all of us, when we come to college, we believe that it's going to be the time of our life when we figure out exactly who we're supposed to be for the rest of our lives. But let me tell you, there's a love in college that's been waiting for you, this God love that's full, that is intended to make you exactly who you're supposed to be. Ephesians chapter 1, Paul refers again to the fullness of God being the church. It's you and me. The fullness of God is us, if we choose to let him make us the fullness of God. Together with a group of people such as those in this room right now, a group of people that you can call your friends and your family for the years that you're here in college, you can become the fullness of God. Let me simply ask you this. Do you know who you're supposed to be right now when you graduate? Do you feel confident that when you walk across that stage, you're going to know exactly who you're supposed to be for the rest of your life? Do you feel secure in that? Do you know who you're going to be later, based on now? Because you can try to make the best resume, you can try to accomplish the coolest things on campus so that everyone sees you, or that the world has changed around you. You can have the best social life, and your friends can tell you exactly who you are, but they cannot give you a permanent identity. None of those things. They only tell you what you're supposed to be for the time being, but they cannot tell you who to be for eternity. Can I share my own story with you of how this happened in my life? How this looked? I know when I came to college, I wanted to figure out who I wanted to be. I love my family, but I was tired of living in McHenry. I was ready for a fresh new start. I was tired of my friends and trying to figure out my own identity based on who they were. I was just ready to move on. And so when I moved into Manchester and I saw my family drive off and I knew that I was about to make the shots, part of me also knew that something big was going to happen. And I know that these next few years were going to be the years where I wanted to discover who I am and who I'm supposed to be for the rest of my life, that I could be secure in. And so within a couple of years and a year or two of searching around, I found a college ministry. It was called Fuel at the time. Now it's Campus Church, of course. And at the time, I didn't know anyone in the ministry, but I decided to do a small group. I co-facilitated one with Chris Rail. He's here as well. And he was one of the only guys I got to know quite well for that time being in that year. But after a while, sooner or later, I lived in a house off campus, the Campus Church house, right over yonder. And as old of a house it was such a cool way to do ministry and outreach with 9 other guys who love the Lord and whose lives have been changed. And sooner or later, after doing some more small groups with my friend Laura and others who have been in this room who might have left already, sooner or later I found myself being an intern for 2 semesters. It's crazy. Came to college not really expecting to have that much of a voice in the ministry, and sooner or later I'm interning with Charlie Welke and with Karis and with other students, Jessica Bachman and others in this room. And it was amazing. And even now, just preaching here in front of all you guys, even being a preview guide, being one of 20 students to represent an entire campus of 20,000 people, I could not have written that sort of story for my own life. No way in the world can that be anything short of God writing a story for my life. He did abundantly more than I could have asked for or imagined, with just a little bit of a desire and a little bit of faith that he could do so much in the next 4 years when I first got here. Do you want to know why God chooses to show his fullness through people like you and me? it's just because he can. Because he wants to. There's nothing that he wants more than to delight in me and you, that we can experience the fullness of God exactly as we're supposed to be. So now, I'd like to give you this little imagery that my friend Josh Spear gave me. I believe that all of us, as we're here in college, we stand here, whether we realize it or not, no matter if you're a freshman, finishing your first year, or if you're a senior, no matter what campus you're at, either all of us right now are at some sort of crossroad, some sort of moment where we know that we can either choose one path or the other. And these paths are this half love and this full love that I mentioned earlier. God, or anything that we can try to replace and put instead of God that'll eventually let us down. All of us in college are at this point right now. One tries to tell you who you are for the time being, and it will never be consistent. You will never find fulfillment. But one permeates into your life and makes you exactly who you're supposed to be, and gives you a rich, fulfilling life with abundantly more than you could ever ask or imagine. Now I'm going to address two different kinds of crowds in this room. First, if you've been calling yourself a Christian, if you say you know God, you love God, you know he loves you, but you found yourself lately chasing after half love. When you chase after the half love path, it only takes you in circles. Josh gave me this imagery, and it's very true. It only takes you in circles because you're going left and right, trying to figure out who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, what kind of job you're supposed to have, what kind of thing you're supposed to put on your resume, what your friends are supposed to say about you, how you're supposed to look with your public image on campus, whether or not you look beautiful or whether or not you feel beautiful in front of that guy or in front of that girl. All of these things, they're just going to take you in circles and let you down. You'll never be satisfied with them. And if you call yourself a Christian in this room, which most of us do, but if you found yourself chasing after those things, maybe tonight's the night just for restart. Maybe tonight's the night where you just need to reestablish what your life is really built upon. Maybe it's a moment to look back once again on that first moment where you knew that you were loved by God, that he made you, he gave you a name, he gave you a purpose to be the fullness of God and experience who he made you to be and experience a loving relationship with him. Maybe you just need to go back to that love once again. Tonight there's a chance for you to get back on the right path and to never look back. If that's you, I encourage you to get back on this journey with God and to never let anything take his place ever again. Please do not forget how much he loves you, how big he is, what he's capable of doing. Now, for others of you in this room, you might not be able to say that you know what kind of love this is. You might not be able to say that you've known this God love while you've been in college. And whether you're starting or whether you're just finishing up, maybe like me, you're a senior, but maybe you're looking back on the last 3, 4, 5 years of your life and you feel like you've wasted your time. You feel like you've soiled your college journey and that there's no chance left for you to make any other choice or choose a different path. If you're thinking those kind of thoughts, I'm here to tell you you're wrong. Because the beauty, the nature, the essence of God's power is that he can take what you have right now in college and turn it into something so much bigger, so much better, something that is abundantly more than anything we could have ever asked for or imagined. And he still, to this very moment, wants to surround you with people in this room who can empower you, who can encourage you, give you that little oomph, that little push that you need in your faith, in your journey. So that together, alongside of one another here in this room, for the rest of our lives on campus, you could be exactly who you were meant to be from the very beginning, all the way to eternity. And guess what? This is the essence of Jesus himself, the living, breathing Son of God. Woo! This is the gospel. He came and lived a perfect life. This God-man, the Son of God, he died a perfect death, and he conquered the emptiness and sin of your life and mine, so that you and I together with the people here in this room could be the fullness of God. Do you want college to mean that for you when you look back? Do you want to look back and see that it was the best years of your life because you came and you did finally discover exactly who you were supposed to be? You came, you left, and you